Good day, everybody. It is currently January 4th in northwestern Ohio. I am standing outside in 55-degree temperatures without a coat because this is totally normal for January 4th. And I figured that since this is the first actually really warm day that isn't full of rain since our recent frost, I would come out and take a look at everything and see how the various plants fared. So this is the first time I've been going out to take a look, so we'll see how things are doing. So over here we have the raspberry bed. As you can see, there is basically no activity there, but that's to be expected. My raspberries didn't grow as I would have hoped, thanks to several factors that were outside of my control, but mostly related to squirrels. As you can see, there are still multiple spots where the squirrels have destroyed, well, not destroyed, I should say, dug up parts of the garden beds. And there's some grass poking through, which means I didn't put the mulch layer thick enough, but, well, you know, this is a thing for spring, I suppose. Several of the plants did okay, we just didn't get any raspberries from them. So hopefully next year will be, or this year will be different. As you can see, we have a broken wire. This is from when I had the tree removed, which the tree, you can see the remnants of it there. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. The tree was about 100 feet tall, some sort of oak. I think it was a pin oak. And they came out, removed it, ground out the stump, but in the process of doing so, they destroyed one of my T-posts and several wires that were holding things together, which turns out I don't really like how this system worked anyway. As you can see, I've got the little clips and just kind of wrapped it around, and that honestly didn't work great. I've got something else in mind for next year, or this year. I'm gonna have to get used to saying that anyway. So, moving along, there's some damage there, but that's fine. Over here we have the three newest additions to the garden. Apple trees, dwarf apple varieties to be specific. The one on the left over there, which is now currently center frame, is a dwarf Granny Smith. The one in the middle is a dwarf Franklin cider, and this one is a I don't remember. Let's take a look. Pink Lady. Alright, sweet. All three of these came from Stark Brothers Nursery, well packaged. They look like they're doing okay. The one in the middle was slightly damaged when the oak tree was removed. I guess that's on me for putting these trees in the ground before the oak tree came out, but the oak tree didn't come out till the end of November, so couldn't have really planted these trees in the meantime because the ground was trying to freeze constantly. So they look okay. Go through, look over here. Yeah, actually, this one looks good despite it getting smacked. It did lose a branch, as you can see right there, which is not great, but such is life. Okay, this one got a leaf that can come off. I'd say other than that, looks good. I hope that's not bud swell that I'm seeing, considering that, you know, it's January. That would not be great. Okay, so anyway, moving on to the garden proper. This is what I was able to do in the last year. So 2022 is the first year that we were really situated enough in this garden to be able to, or in this house I should say, in order to be able to build a garden like I would like. And with the removal of the oak tree, as you can see, there is quite a bit of space left over. And as of right now, my wife and I have an agreement. Everything from this bed, where these trees are, back, as well as the section where the raspberries are, is mine to do with as I please. And the rest, which is this bit, is for her to do whatever she wants with, which right now she's focused on indoor projects, so no idea what the future is going to hold for that. So, got a couple of planters. Anything survived? Let's take a look. Spinach. Spinach survived. It's not thriving by any means, but actually it appears to have sprouted in the last month. That's fun. So this is space spinach. I think I probably got the seeds from Johnny's Seed Company. I quite like the variety. The leaves are decent size. Got a good harvest out of them. Out of just this planter's worth last summer and spring, I probably got about 4 pounds or so of spinach. So it wasn't bad at all, in my opinion. Then again, it was the first year I'd grown spinach, so maybe that's terrible. I guess I'll find out. Alright, here we had lettuce that bolted, which you can see the seeds and stuff that are still, not seeds, stalks that you can see are still sticking up. And that's alright. I'm just going to wreck that out later. And you can see more spinach, which is not doing anywhere near as well as the spinach in the other bed. So just for comparison again, there's that one versus this one. So, yeah, kind of a mixed bag. Alright, so on to my dad's garden bed. So one of the things I wanted to do with the establishment of this garden was to allow my father, who owns a condo in the south of the city, to have his own gardening space. So this was his gardening space, and as you can see, he had some Brussels sprouts, he had some tomato plants, he had some radishes, he had some carrots. Out of all of this, the only thing that looks like it made it through the freeze, the Brussels sprouts might be okay. I don't know, kind of hard to tell. Because as you can see, the stem looks alright, but the Brussels sprouts themselves are tiny. And most of them, yeah, that's probably not a great sign. Anyway, I had some broccoli. That's pretty dead now. Carrots are doing good. Carrots are still doing well. So I assume he is going to harvest these at some point. I don't actually know what his plans are. He got pretty sick in the middle of summer and wasn't able to put as much effort into this as he wanted. So I'm going to have to talk to him about that, and we'll see what the plan is. So I know this one's kind of a plant that people don't enjoy all that much, and called Malabar spinach, also called climbing spinach. It's an Indian plant, specifically from India, I should say. And it tastes a bit like spinach. It's not spinach. The leaves are very thick comparatively as well. However, it is very pretty as an ornamental, like an edible ornamental. I would say that's where it really shines. It's you can't see it right now, but the stems are a dark red color and the leaves are a glossy dark green. And it does get these little purple berries. The berries taste like spinach, which is extremely kind of strange if you're not prepared for it, and they will readily stain anything they come in contact with. So, interesting thing about this plant, when I was going through in the summer and trying to see flowers or something, I never saw flowers on the plant, but it is covered in berries that are left over. Those will drop to the ground and fail to germinate, I'm sure, because this is not their native zone. So, yeah. Anyway, I enjoyed them. I'll plant more because, at worst, they were quite fun to look at. So, let's see. With the exception of removing the remnants of the Malabar spinach, because it was still alive when I did this, this was one of our pepper beds. Now, this is a 4-foot by 6-foot bed, 12 inches, well, to be specific, it's 11.5 inches tall. I grew in here bell peppers of a couple different varieties, as well as jalapenos, serranos, and pepperoncinis, and they did okay. Bell peppers did not. The smaller the pepper, the better it did, which leads me to believe I have nutrient problems in my soil. This was a mixture of topsoil and compost I got from a local company that I did fertilize, but it was the first year, so I didn't really have a lot of time to build proper soil health. I possibly did not fertilize this enough. It could have also been blossom end rot due to a lack of water getting to the root system, which would make it so the root system was not able to uptake calcium properly. So either the calcium wasn't there because I didn't, do enough to build the soil, or the water just wasn't there, so their roots couldn't actually access anything. So anyway, the green that you see in there now is winter rye. I'm using that as a cover crop. I'm going to chop and drop it come late winter. And that's the plan. So this bed over here was another pepper bed. This one I grew poblanos, serranos, jalapenos, pepperoncinis, and ghost peppers. Out of those, they all produced well except for the ghost peppers. Last year was the first time I had seed started, and as a result of that, I didn't do everything properly, we'll just put it that way, and the ghost peppers ended up a bit stunted. So they, along with the poblanos, were in the section where you do not see winter rye growing, and that's because they were the last plants to be removed from the pepper beds. So, well, except for the Malabar spinach, of course. So, anyway, yeah, as you can see, there's no mulch there, and that was probably another one of my problems, is the soil drying out inappropriately, because I'm still kind of new to this. It's alright. You live and you learn, right? Coming over here, this plant that is now nice and crispy and dead is wasabi arugula, one of my wife's favorites. Good times with that. It's got the same sort of kick as wasabi, but not quite as hot. Pretty good stuff. This was one plant that was 4 inches tall when I bought it, and it became quite large. It, in turn, seeded across the, I'd say, within a 2-foot diameter of this plant. So there were, actually, you can still see, as some of them have survived. Yeah, just quite a lot of seedlings there, so I'm going to have to do something about that. Here we have some weeds, and what was left of, let's see, there was zucchini and summer squash growing in this bed previously. So that's what was there. Go this way, I suppose. Alright, now this bed, everything's been taken out of it pretty much. I got a little bit of cleanup work left to do. This was eggplants and more summer squash. So, pretty simple. Eggplants, I didn't get any really big eggplants, but the ping tong long eggplant varieties did pretty well. I got a lot of those, and I was fairly happy with how those turned out. One other thing that I did put here, and I'm hoping it comes back from self-seeding, is Royal Carpet Alyssum, which is the remnants that you see there. It's pretty good stuff. There was also orange balm in this bed. I do not see any remnants of it, so it's probably gone. Alright, this bed was my potato bed. In it, you can probably guess, were potatoes. This is another 4x6. I should have mentioned this before. All of the beds on this side of the garden over here, except for the 2 little mobile planters, of course, all of the raised beds on this side of the garden are 4 foot by 10 foot and 11.5 inches tall. So, yeah. These 3 of them are 4x6s, and those 2 are 4x4s. I did that specifically to leave like a walkway there. Turns out that the walkway in my head was a lot bigger than the walkway to my eyes, we'll just put it that way. I'm probably going to put more beds there, to be honest. So anyway, the potatoes, they did pretty well. I'd never grown a potato plant before. I'd never seen a potato plant before, except for, you know, when they're first sprouting from the potato and you throw the potato away. Yeah, so it was interesting to grow them. They're kind of neat-looking plants. Alright, so here on this trellis you can see the little last remnants of the King Lima lima beans that I grew. This was the bean bed, for lack of a better term. I had a large A-frame style trellis, or a TP style trellis, depending on how you want to look at it, where both long sides of the bed were connected together in like an A shape at the top, with a couple of long poles set across the top. So it created a, I'd say roughly 8 foot tall bed, or 8-foot tall trellis for the beans to climb, which worked pretty well. So especially the King Lima beans, as you can see, they were able to migrate from the trellis, which obviously isn't here now, but from the trellis over to the archway, and that created a really nice effect. I don't know if I'm going to grow King Lima beans in the future, just because I don't do a whole lot with them, but it was interesting to have the beans growing down, and it was very kind of spectacular looking in the summer to see all that green growth going across the top of the trellis. I only had that with 2 of the trellises this year. A lot of the other stuff that I planted, such as cucumbers, a couple of vining varieties of squash, and melons, got destroyed by the squirrels or just didn't climb like I would have liked. And so these were the only trellises that really got heavy utilization. So, moving over here, we have the remnants of the Swiss chard. This was the Bright Lights variety. You can kind of tell. It may survive, but you look down here, like that one right in the middle of the frame looks okay, but everything else kind of looks not great. So, we'll see. I'm going to kind of leave it as it is because, again, it's 55-ish degrees outside right now, but it is not supposed to be this warm. So we're just going to kind of leave that and let it do what it's going to do, and we'll see. The rest of this bed was supposed to be ground cherries and lavender, which the lavender is still alive. It's already been pruned back and whatnot. It didn't get huge, but again, this is not really an area where lavender grows really well on its own, so I'm happy with it. Hopefully it'll throw some flowers next year, and we'll get a nice little display from it. My wife really likes the smell as well, so hopefully that does something fun. What else was in this bed? Catnip, as well as, which did really well, and parsley, which also did really well. Cats really liked the fresh catnip. Alright, so coming over to this side, this was the brassica bed, and this contained a few different varieties of kale, which some of it looks like it'll survive. I don't know, I guess we'll see. Also contained my Brussels sprouts, which did absolutely terribly, and my broccolini and my green early sprouting calabrese, which was in this section here. So as we can see, this is my Brussels sprouts, and they barely sprouted and did not really Brussels, as you can see. So there's nothing there. Hopefully they'll live, because it is possible for them to overwinter and then set proper Brussels sprouts and grow. I'm going to reevaluate that in the spring, because if these plants kind of still look like this, or worse, I suspect worse by then, I'm just going to rip them out and start anew. Try again with a different variety of, maybe not the Brussels sprouts, I think that was a me issue. The broccolini, we had a very hot summer, and because of that, the broccolini just wanted to bolt. You can see that it bolted. You may not know this, or maybe you do. You probably do. Broccoli, if it's exposed to hot temperatures and it starts to flower, becomes just absolutely wretched. It's terrible. Terrible stuff. Don't eat it. It's disgusting. That was the problem I had with the early sprouting calabrese, because I misunderstood what the word early sprouting meant. So it's green early sprouting calabrese was the variety. And green seems like kind of an obvious thing because it's broccoli, right? So you'd think it would be green. Early just means it is a early variety to be able to harvest. Sprouting means that it does not come to a head. It's more like broccolini. Now, see, I didn't know that at the time. I recently learned that from watching a few videos on YouTube. And yeah, that was bad. It doesn't form a head no matter what you do. Also, it bolted immediately and tasted terrible. So, again, because, summer was hot and dry and just didn't have very good luck with the broccoli bed this year. The broccoli portion of the bed. Brussels sprouts, didn't get a single harvest from. Broccolini, got a little bit, but not much. Green early sprouting calabrese, I think would have been okay had I understood that it was not going to make heads, and also had it not been quite as hot. I might need to try shade fabric or something next year. So, kale. Kale is a different story. Kale did really well, especially what is now my favorite variety of kale, Black Magic, also called dinosaur kale. That's these things here. Yeah, it's good stuff. The leaves, you can't really see it here because a lot of the leaves that were long got stunted, but the leaves that sprout off of this can be like a foot long and 4 to 5 inches wide. They have such nice form on the leaves. You can kind of see it there. Nice and bumpy texture, very nutty flavor as far as kale goes. No pepperiness, mild, not really bitter. I really liked it. Good stuff. These right here are Casper kale, which did not actually start the caspering portion up until pretty much frost. And then we also have some curly blue kale, I think it is, which did okay, I will say. And actually, as you can see, that one is doing quite well. Several of these are going to bounce back from the frost, I think, no problem. But several others, like the Casper kale, which is supposed to do well in the winter, at least I thought it was supposed to do well, does not look like it did well. That said, the storm that swept through here last week did bring temperatures as low as -4, and it was a snap cold. It did gradually cool down. We went from probably 40 degrees one day to 20 degrees the next day to -4 for about 3 days straight. And then it jumped back up to like 20 and then 40, and now it is almost 60 degrees outside. So the plants just are not prepared for that sort of thing. So anyway, the kale was pretty good. As far as flavors go, the Black Magic / dinosaur kale, that is by far my favorite variety that I have ever tried. Curly kale had a decent flavor, kind of more typical of what you'd think of when you think kale. The Casper kale, we harvested some leaves from it, and I couldn't tell the difference between that and the curly kale, because at the time the Casper kale did not have its signature white splotching, which is why it's called Casper kale, if you didn't know. Unfortunately, given that they're pretty much dead, you can not see the white splotching on the leaves now. So, yeah, kind of a wash there. Wasn't a spectacular variety. The plants didn't get very big. I think I'm gonna forego Casper kale in the future. Curly kale did well. Black Magic kale, fantastic. I'm gonna back up a little bit for this one. Behold the tomato bed, or what's left of it. So the tomato bed, I grew, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so it would have been 19 tomato plants in this bed. Spacing was about a foot on center, because I was single stemming them. Now, because I was single stemming at least about halfway up and doing a lot of very heavy pruning, this bed actually was reasonably well maintained and had no signs of early disease or anything like that. Did get some blossom end rot, but again, I think that was either a lack of stuff being in the dirt or the dirt itself just being too dry. So some varieties did better than others. These varieties here, I should say these plants right here on this end, were blueberries, which is an indigo cherry tomato variety. It's interesting because the berries basically get a tan, and when they do, they turn like a dark purple color, but only when they're exposed to the sun. So the bottom of the berries would turn a nice red or yellow, depending on which plant it was. I want to say it was this one. I mean, not that it matters now, but this one was growing specifically yellow berries with purple, and all the rest were red. So not a huge fan of the flavor because it's a savory cherry tomato, and it turns out that the things I use a cherry tomato for, I don't want savory for, I want sweet. So yeah, that said, these were the best performers by far. They produced probably 3 to 4 times as many tomatoes as the others. The plants were extremely vigorous, and yeah, I just wish I really liked the flavor, because it would have been a great tomato otherwise. I'm going to grow these again, because I think if I just change the application of it, you know, if I don't want to snack on them, maybe I want to dry them and grind them up in a spice grinder to make like an umami tomato powder sort of thing. That could be really good. They would go great in like stews as little pops of tomato flavor, but they taste like a regular, kind of like a regular just tomato. So let's see. I also had some Rapunzels. These were supposed to be Rapunzels. They were not Rapunzels. I don't know what they were. They were billed as Rapunzels, put it that way. I paid for Rapunzels. So Rapunzels, if you're not already aware, are supposed to have nice, huge tresses. And this is a decent-sized tress, but they're supposed to have tresses that are 3 times that length and just covered in tomatoes. I didn't get that. I don't know what these were. They were a hybrid. The tomatoes on each plant came out kind of weird, too. Like, some of them were round, some of them were pear-shaped. Some of them, most of them, I should say, had really thick skin and very little on the inside, which makes me think it was just some variety of pear tomatoes. But I don't know, because it wasn't even consistent between the plants. So I'm going to have to say that these were definitely some sort of hybrid that was probably unintentional. Anyway, I didn't save seeds from them. I still have some, but I'm probably not going to plant those again. And actually, there's one that fell off the plant before it finished ripening, and you can see the, that one's actually shaped like a grape tomato, but some of them were shaped like pear tomatoes, and others were round. These were all in the same plant, so it's not something I've seen before. It was unusual. On this side, I had Sweet 100s. I had Gardener's Delight, which I quite like those. Gardener's Delight is basically just a cherry tomato, but bigger. Sweet 100s are always a well-proven winner. I also tried growing some Cherokee Purples and some Ox Hearts. The Ox Hearts did all right. The bigger Ox Hearts tended to have blossom end rot and didn't do as well. And the small Ox Hearts, they did fine. There was also the Great White Tomato I tried to grow. I didn't get a single one of those that didn't have blossom end rot issues. The tomatoes that I did get, which were few in number, and the plants themselves didn't do great. They were, I don't know, maybe 60% of the size of the other ones. They just did not do well here. I don't know if that was me or the dirt or what. I might try those again just to give it another fair shot, but yeah. The Cherokee Purples, I liked them from the flavor I could get, but again, I could only get little ones because the big ones all had blossom end rot. Blossom end rot was a big problem this year. Hopefully it won't be for 2023, but for 2022, that was a rough time. Alright, and then over here, and I was really hoping to see more than what I'm seeing now. This is where my garlic and my elephant garlic and my shallots are supposed to be sticking up out of this mesh. As you can see, we'll get down nice and low. There is nothing sticking up out of that mesh anywhere, and all of these are probably rotting in the ground, which is very unfortunate. That makes me sad. I wanted Grandpa Garlic to grow so badly. Oh well. This is always next year. Yeah, we'll wait till spring. I'm not going to disturb this bed until I don't really have to plant anything in this bed for a while. So, well, we'll see. This did get mulch when I planted it up in the fall with the garlic and everything. So, yeah, we'll see. Compost pile. Open compost pile. Too short, too fat. Does not compost very quickly. My compost tumbler did all right. Let's see the status. This is the stuff that I wrecked out earlier. And not a whole lot of decomposition, which I'm not surprised by, because a lot of that is very thick and fibrous. Alright, I'll come over here and take a look at these little planters. This is where I tried garlic the previous year. Didn't do as well as I would have hoped. And by that, I mean the squirrels dug everything up, and I got a single tiny bulb. And I do mean tiny. The bulb was the size of a American quarter. It was very small, It was fully formed, which was kind of interesting, but it not enough garlic to do anything with, other than try planting it. But I don't want to plant that one because it could have been an anomaly that it was so small, and if that were the case, you know, propagating from there would result in tiny broccoli as well. This plant here is actually the remnants of my favorite plant, which is Solanum dulcamara. That is the bittersweet nightshade plant. It's also called snakeberry, or colloquially just bittersweet. I'm a big fan of it. I don't use it for anything. For me, it's purely ornamental. I have an interest in poisonous plants. I have since I was a teenager, and when I was a teenager, my mother actually went out to the park and located a sprig of this and brought it back to me at home, where I was able to then grow it. She did that as a surprise, and it was good fun. I quite liked it. Now, back then I was growing it sort of hydroponically in an old Pepsi bottle, like an old Pepsi 2-liter, and that worked for a while, but then one day it fell off of a shelf and died, and that wasn't great. Anyway, so Solanum dulcamara is mildly poisonous. It's not terribly so. And yeah, I don't know, I just like it. It's got interesting shaped leaves. The leaves have kind of a purplish, they're green, but they have like a purplish blush, and then the flowers are tiny yellow purple flowers, or I should say purple flowers with yellow stamens and whatnot. And they look a lot like potato flowers, which that should not come as a surprise since they're all related. So anything in the Solanum family is going to have flowers that sort of look like that. So any of the nightshade varieties, except for true nightshade, which is belladonna, that's not a Solanum, but the rest of them pretty much are, especially any of the ones you'd encounter around these parts. So like Eastern American nightshade, white nightshade, bittersweet nightshade, several varieties of black nightshade, but not deadly black nightshade, because that's belladonna. So anyway, the rest of the nightshade family would include things like peppers and tomatoes and potatoes and eggplants. Which the interesting thing about that is you can really see it in the flower shape. You sort of see it in the leaf shape, more so in potatoes or the potato leaf tomato varieties. The flowers you can really tell with peppers and eggplants that they're all related. And this is actually why the green portions of a tomato plant, and with the possible exception of tomatoes that are fully green when ripe, are very ever so mildly poisonous. And it is extremely mild. So like fried green tomatoes and whatnot is fine. You're not going to hurt yourself unless you eat nothing but fried green tomatoes in perpetuity for a really long time, and then maybe you do enough damage. But no, I mean, it's extremely minor. But there are toxic alkaloids, or maybe they're glycoloids, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, going on a rant here about Solanum. Good family. It's like half the garden, honestly. So, and let's see here. This is something I was extremely happy to get and start growing. And as you can see, this, unlike most of the other beds, is protected against predation by squirrels digging everything up. These are pink champagne currant plants that I was able to get from a retailer. I don't remember. It was an online retailer. They shipped them to me. I don't remember who it is offhand. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, pink champagne currants. This is their first year. They're doing all right. I hope to get some currants from them in the next year or so. I don't know if they'll do their magic in spring, or if it'll be a year or more, of establishing before they do that. But pink champagne currants are considered among the best currants for fresh eating. So I'm really excited for that. I've never had a currant because currants are sort of quasi-illegal in some portions of the United States still. They were outlawed due to white pine blister rust. They act as black currants specifically act as a vector for white pine blister rust. And at the time, back in early 1900s, the lumber industry in the United States was primarily white pine based. So Yeah, that freaked everybody out, and they decided, no, we're not going to allow currants. So anyway, a lot of states have lifted this ban, but trying to get currants in the United States is still sort of difficult, especially the more interesting varieties, because black currants are still hard to get kind of all over, and then the other varieties, like the pink, red, and white currants, those are easier to get. There's less restrictions on those, but a lot of places still won't allow you to have them. So it's an interesting little bit of history. I'm glad that in Ohio anyway, pink, red, and white currants are still allowed. You can have black currants in Ohio, but I don't remember if it requires a permit or if it requires, like, you can't plant them within X number of feet or something. There might just be planting restrictions. Actually, I think Ohio might require a permit. I don't remember. Anyway, unless you're going to make like wine out of them, black currants, or I suppose jam, or jellies, things like that, black currants aren't really going to be the best choice anyway. If you want to eat them fresh, you're going to want to go with a white or pink variety, or maybe a red if you like very acidic tart things. I kind of am in the middle of the road when it comes to that, so pink champagne currants just sounded kind of amazing, like a tiny citrusy grape sort of experience, with like a lemon zing to it as well. I'm looking forward to trying them. Also, pink champagne currants make beautifully long trusses of pearlescent, like see-through pink berries, and they're just very interesting. So anyway, yeah, that is the tour. I've got this planter over here as well. I had cilantro growing in this, as well as more arugula, and bunching onions were kind of spread throughout the beds, just in places that I had space. This was one of the areas that I had bunching onions, and I love bunching onions. They're great. I think there was some wasabi arugula in there too, because that might be, I don't know what that is. That might be wasabi arugula. That might be cilantro. I can't tell. Anyway, one of my strawberry planters, it got smacked by a piece of equipment when they were dealing with my tree removal, and as a result, it got obliterated. So they were nice enough to replace it, which is fine. You'll notice looking at it, and don't kind of ignore the broken one here. Let's look at the one that's not broken. You're going to notice I said this is my strawberry planter, but you're going to look, well, there's a strawberry plant, and there's a strawberry plant, and there's like basically no other strawberry plants. I planted 48, I think it was. No, sorry, 43 strawberry plants in total this year, and 2 of them, those 2 that I just showed you, were the 2 that were not dug up and destroyed by the squirrels. I really liked squirrels up until this last year in the garden, and now I've realized that they are destructive menaces. So I don't regret taking the tree that they lived in down. Now, as you can see, they have plenty of other spaces to live. While I live in the middle of the city, it is surprisingly like woodlandy back here, so it's nice. And this is my shed that I use primarily to house my gardening stuff. So anyway, that's the tour. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, until we talk again, thanks.